What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and the title of this video is 7 Keys to Start a New Life. And for anybody that knows me and knows my past, they know that I have transformed completely. I went from a completely different kind of lifestyle, a completely dark and ugly past, to a completely different place. And over the course of this transformation, I've been able to kind of clarify the different things that really helped me during this transformational period, and still help me as I transform further and further into greater and greater versions of myself. So I simplified this into 7 keys, and I want to share with you the 7 keys that I've used and things that are universally beneficial for anybody that feels inspired to just start over, to live a different life, to become a new, better, greater person and greater version of themselves. Now, the way that I'm going to express this is in terms that also work for quitting habits or breaking addictions. And the reason why I'm putting it out in these terms is because if you think about it, if you're going to be creating a new life, creating a new version of yourself, what you're doing is you're going to be quitting old habits, quitting old cycles, and you're going to be replacing them with new behaviors, new thoughts, new ways of being. So in many ways, it's like quitting a kind of an addiction. You can think of it like that. The habituated thought patterns, the habituated behaviors that have gotten you into the place that you're at now where you feel like you want to change are, in a sense, kind of like habits or maybe even addictions that we need to break, right? Or you're looking to break, you're looking to change. So the kind of theme of how I'm going to express this is the idea of breaking old habits and instilling new habits. Okay, step number 1 is clarifying your purpose. And this is huge because if we don't have a purpose that drives us, that magnetizes us towards it, it's really hard to make a change. So in clarifying your purpose, it's not only understanding why you want to change, but it's also clarifying what it is exactly that you're trying to do. Now, this is especially important when it comes to things like quitting addictions. If you happen to be somebody that's maybe wanting to make the change from being addicted to some sort of drug to being clean. Because if you don't clarify a purpose that is beyond just transcending the pain and suffering that you're experiencing in this moment, then what often happens is you set yourself up for a relapse. And this is not just with drug addiction, but this could even be a relapse of behavior, a relapse into an old pattern of behavior. Because oftentimes people will kind of have a fire under their ass because there's a bunch of stuff going wrong in their life, shit's falling apart, and that will be their motivation to change. They'll be like, well, let's say I'm homeless now, I just want to get a house again, I want to get an apartment, get back into a place, or I just want to quit this drug because it's starting to affect my sleep and I can't sleep and I'm feeling sick and it's affecting my health. And that's their motivation to change. Now, while that's good, it's a fire under your ass and it'll get you moving. The problem with stopping there is that once you get that apartment or once you quit that drug and your health comes back, you kind of come to this place where you're like, okay, well, what now? And if you haven't really decided a greater purpose for your life, then it's really easy to fall back into the same old patterns. So the idea is clarifying a purpose. Now, there's some criteria for the kind of purpose that you want to clarify. You want it to be something that really inspires you, that really motivates you, so you feel like you truly have an exciting purpose to live for. And you also want it to be something that contributes to the well-being of others also. Because while it's great to feel good for yourself, that's another one of those setting yourself up for failure scenarios where you can get all the goods for yourself and you can make your life really good, but if you're not serving other people in some sort of way, what you will find is that over time it becomes less fulfilling. Over time it loses its spice and you get over the buzz of getting new things and experiencing goodness for yourself. And deep down inside, you won't really have that fulfillment of feeling valuable and of being of service. There have been many studies that have been done on people and their levels of fulfillment. And the people that are most fulfilled with their lives are people that have a life that contributes to the well-being of others, that is in service to other people. So pick a purpose that's exciting, that's motivating, that's inspiring, and that serves other people, and your purpose is going to be a sturdy foundation. Okay, step number 2 is understanding state-based decision making. Because we as humans, we make our decisions from a state of being. And what determines the quality of our decisions is the quality of that state of being that we're in when we're making the decisions. Everybody's had the experience where they're really upset about something and they're all tormented inside, and they make a decision that ends up making everything worse because they made it from an ungrounded and angry place. Therefore, if we're in a negative state, if we're feeling depressed, we're feeling angry, we're feeling frustrated, it's a good time to not make decisions. And wait till we're in a brighter space, in a high vibe, to make decisions in our life, especially those decisions that are big decisions that are going to affect things for a long time down the road. So, something that I understood or started to notice about myself was that I had 2 logics. This is at critical times when I was changing the way I think or the way that I operate in my life. I realized there was 2 different kind of set points of logic. There was my habituated negative set point of logic that I was working to change, and this resulted, the decisions that I made from that set of that logic resulted in negative things in my life and all the things that led me to the brick wall that I was faced with. And then I had the higher logic. And this was the logic that was inspiring me to change. This was the logic that gave me the motivation, that had the belief systems that liberated me and gave me the inspiration to make a difference in my life. And there were 2 completely different logics. Now, what I learned was, whenever I got into a negative vibrational state, whether it was, I was frustrated from something or just feeling depressed or hopeless or whatever it was, I would shift into that lower logic. And I would start looking at my reality through that lens. And that lens was a hopeless, depressed, powerless lens. It was really destructive. And so if I started thinking about my reality, and especially making decisions about my reality through that lens, it always resulted in more of what I didn't want. So what I realized was, whenever I got into that state, it was really important for me to, number 1, stop making decisions. Number 2, do my best to stop thinking and stop analyzing my reality. And 3, shift myself into a higher state so I could start accessing that higher logic. And when I was able to shift myself into the higher logic state and then start making decisions from that place, then it really acted like the rudder in my boat that could navigate me towards a more preferable reality. Which brings us to number 3, which is understanding triggers. Because oftentimes what shifts us from a high vibrational state into a lower vibrational state are the things in our reality that trigger us. So it's really important for us to understand what our triggers are so that we can adequately prepare ourselves for those trigger moments. So whether it's your spouse, or whether it's traffic, or whether it's somebody getting your order wrong at the restaurant, or whether it's hearing bad news from a friend, or whatever it is, identify those things that are regular triggers for you, those things that set you off and kind of put you into a tailspin of negative thinking or negative vibrations. And when you can identify the key things that come up on a repetitive basis in your life that trigger you, then you can start preparing for those things by creating a prevailing logic that counteracts the logic that would tailspin you into a negative vibration. Or by energetically preparing yourself for those situations so that then when they do arise, you have some sort of game plan or strategy for how to shift it. Now, number 4, this is what I like to call exit strategies. And exit strategies, these are the strategies that we use to shift ourselves out of negative states when we find ourselves, triggered and knocked into a negative state. And there's many different techniques for exit strategies. I'll make more videos about this in the future, and I have a lot of content on exit strategies already. I may have named them something different. But essentially, there's 2 different categories of viable exit strategies that I've used. And one is distraction, and this is distracting yourself with something else that brings more joy into your life. And the second one is to stop thinking altogether. Now, Stopping thinking altogether can prove to be a little bit more difficult, especially for somebody that's maybe not an avid meditator or that hasn't had a lot of practice with learning how to turn their mind off. And in the meantime, while you're practicing how to turn your mind off and stop thinking and let these things go, using distraction exit strategies can be really useful. So how that would look is, one thing that I do is sometimes if I find myself in a negative space or in a negative spiral where I can't stop thinking about something that's irking me or bothering me, I can put on a video of it's like those funniest home videos where there's little kids that are like running into trees or falling off of stuff. I find that really funny, and it's one of the few things that makes me laugh uncontrollably. And so I'll throw one of those videos on and it'll kind of snap me out of that state and I'll start laughing. And anything that can get you to laugh is probably the best way to shift states, because laughter in itself, it has a vibrational quality that literally shakes the lower vibe off of you. So it's really, really useful. But anything that can distract you from whatever that frustration is or that thing that you're stuck in to bring you out of that, this is an exit strategy. So you can explore different exit strategies and find out what works best for you. Okay, number 5. This is putting the circumstances of your reality in your favor. So stacking your reality in your favor. And this is super huge for anybody that wants to change anything in life. So think about somebody that, well, here, for me, an example for me is one of the things that I really wanted to change was my health. And so for many years, I really focused on shifting my health and adopting new healthy lifestyle practices. And one of the things that I realized was that if I wanted to drink green juice, I was much more likely to drink green juice when the juicer was already made and it was put out on the counter for me. If I had the juicer apart in the different pieces and it was underneath the counter, I would almost never make juice, because I'd be in the kitchen and I'd think about making juice and I'd be like, oh, and just that little thought of having to put it all together would deter me from making it. So I would stack the odds in my favor, and I would, after I finished making juice, I would put it, when I cleaned the juicer, I would put the juicer back together on the counter. And having it out on the counter like that made it much more likely that I would make juice again. So this is how I stack the odds in my favor. This could be as simple as, if you wanted to exercise more and you have a treadmill in the basement, bringing the treadmill up and putting it in the living room. Any sort of thing that can stack the odds in your favor. This also works in reverse too. So if you have a bad habit that you're trying to quit, say that you're trying to quit drinking and the liquor store is down the street from your house and you always go on a walk out by the park and pass the liquor store, then maybe you could create an alternate route and not walk past the liquor store, so that in that moment where you have the option to go and grab liquor, and you might not have thought about doing it until you were right in front of the store, you in the moment of walking home, you won't have that temptation. So you're stacking the odds in your favor. You're taking your circumstances and you're making it more convenient for yourself to have the kind of behavior that you prefer to have, and you're making it more inconvenient for you to act on the kind of behavior that you don't wish to continue acting on. Okay, so number 6. Now this is really, really good, and this is especially good if you're trying to take on some sort of new lifestyle habit like changing your diet, or if you're trying to quit drugs or quit some sort of negative habit that you don't like. And this is celebrate, but celebrate your dedication. Don't celebrate the progress that you've made thus far. And this is very nuanced, so it's really important to understand this. It's important to celebrate your dedication. So if you have, say, you changed your diet and you've done really good, you haven't eaten the stuff that you're not wanting to eat for a long time, and your health is starting to get a lot better. If you're feeling really good about it, it's been a week and you've done a really good job, and you want to celebrate, it's great to celebrate, but it's important to celebrate your dedication to your new healthy lifestyle, as opposed to celebrating the accomplishments that you've made. Because when we celebrate an accomplishment, sometimes we can get too caught up or too proud in our accomplishment to the point where we feel like, well, we've done so much this far, therefore we can relapse, or therefore we can celebrate our accomplishment doing so well by, slacking a bit. right? And I'm not like a person that's saying you have to be like super on every little detail and there's no space for, you know, anything outside of order and rigorous, meticulous action on your path. I mean, I'm actually a lot looser with that, and it's okay to do different things that are fun, even though they might not be the healthiest thing for you. But what I'm speaking to is there's critical times in our transformation process where there isn't space for that with certain things. With people that have certain addictions, I mean, if you're addicted to heroin and you have like a month clean, it's not a good idea to celebrate being a month clean by doing heroin once and treating yourself to that. It's just a bad idea, and it gets you in a whole heap of trouble. So with habits that are really ingrained, that are really hard for us to quit, it's really important to celebrate our dedication, not celebrate our accomplishments. Because we start celebrating our accomplishments, we can start making excuses for why it's okay to cave a bit on what our greater purpose is. Okay, so number 7. Now this one's similar to number 6 in the sense that it's nuanced. It's just a different way of kind of perceiving things. But number 7 is about how to deal with failure. You know, when we're on this path of making transformation in our lives, we're going to run into situations where we fail, where we revert to an old behavior. If we're trying to quit drugs or an addiction, maybe we relapse. These things happen. It's part of the path. But how we respond to that is extremely important in our long-term success. Naturally, we want to kind of blame something. We want to look at what it is that caused us to fall back on our path. Now, the key here is instead of blaming our ability to succeed, our ability to fulfill whatever it is, just our ability in general, what we blame is our dedication. And I'll explain this in a little bit. Now, blame may seem like a really strong word, but what I mean here is the reason for why we're running into this problem. Naturally, we want to blame something. We're looking for the reason. So I don't mean blame in a kind of like not taking responsibility way. I mean blame in what is to blame for the problem. What is the source of the issue here? See, where people get caught up is maybe they fail at something, and then they blame their ability. They say, I did that because I just can't do it. Like, I'm not good enough. I don't have it in me. See, this is dangerous because ultimately that's not true, for one. But two, when you believe that lie, it puts you in a hopeless state where there's no resolve. But when you can blame your dedication, because ultimately that's what it is. We fell back because we weren't dedicated enough. Maybe we didn't figure out all the nuances necessary to create the kind of environment that was supportive for our change. Or maybe we just didn't understand the complexity of the problem that we were dealing with because we weren't dedicated enough to go deeply enough and actually explore that and understand what we're dealing with. So when we can blame our dedication, what that can do is that can inspire us to become more dedicated, to learn more about what we need to learn more about, and to figure out other ways to bring more motivation into our lives, as opposed to creating a hopeless scenario where we feel like we can't achieve things or that it's just it's hopeless. There's nothing that we can do. So these are the 7 keys that I've used to transform my life. These are things that I continue using to transform my life on a regular basis. You know, there's a lot of different things that could be added to this. There's a lot of different nuances that could be brought to each one of these keys, but I wanted to just kind of lay it out as 7 keys so that you could start getting the wheels spinning about these different things and start looking at transformation from a viewpoint or a context that seems more doable and seems very practical. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and let me know if these things were useful for you. So thanks so much. This is Patrick Hayes. I'll talk to you next time. One love.